Call this meeting in the Pittsburgh City Commission to order. Will you join me in the flag salute? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'm setting in tonight for Mayor McNay. She won't be here in her absence. I'll try to do as well as she does. Move on to public input. Is there anyone that would like to speak in public input? Please come forward and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Sydney Anselmi. I'm at 1503 South Pine. I am the current chairman of the Downtown Advisory Board, and I'm also the owner of Audacious Boutique Downtown. Tonight we want to talk to you a little bit about the Pittsburgh City Flag competition that's been going on. You guys have the images up on the screen, and I wanted to let you know a little bit about why we wanted to do this and where we're at in the process. So I'm excited to talk about the work being done to create a city flag for the city of Pittsburgh. It's been a combined effort between Imagine Pittsburgh 2030 and the Downtown Advisory Board, and according to our research, the city of Pittsburgh has never had its own flag, which is interesting. So if you look at our neighbors towards the west in Wichita, who have the 6th best designed flag in the nation, the only ones ahead of them are DC, Chicago, Denver, Phoenix, and St. Louis. That flag was created in 1937, but you guys may have seen that it's recently gained in popularity, I'd say within the last 10, 15, 20 years. It's starting to be seen everywhere around town. There's not many places you can go in Wichita without seeing the city flag. Our neighbors to the southeast in Joplin also have a city flag now. And in Chicago, I thought this was an interesting fact. The flag is so culturally ingrained in the city that when an officer or a firefighter dies, it's commonplace sometimes to replace the American flag with the Chicago flag over their casket. So that's how much that city flag means in Chicago. So you may say we have more important things to worry about than a city flag. To that, Ted Kay, a vexillologist, which is a flag expert, pretty exciting, would say if you have a great city flag, you have a banner for people to rally under to face those more important things. Cities like Chicago and Wichita love their city, so they fly their flag. But Kay also points out that cities who love their flags so much, it creates a more love for the place itself. So it's this positive feedback loop between great symbolism of a city and civic pride. So we are really fortunate, as you all know, in Pittsburgh to have a rich arts community. And we reached out via social media, TV channels, press releases, reached out to the PSU art department, other high school and area art departments. We reached about 12,000 people total in our call for submissions for a city flag. We received over 20 back, and they were all really well designed, very well thought out different flags. And a lot of them were anything from community members to Pitt State students, and we even had an international submission, which was interesting. But from there, the two boards, Imagine Pittsburgh 2030, the Downtown Advisory Board, and representation from Pittsburgh Art Walk, selected these final 3 that you guys see here, and they are up for a public vote until June 13th, and the idea is to have the community of Pittsburgh have a say in what they want their city flag to look like and what they would like it to represent. So on your way in, you may have seen where the agendas are. There's one of these pamphlets that we developed that has the different flag options, and it tells you a little bit about the artist's design, what it stood for. For instance, in the yellow flag, did you know that the symbol in the center of the red diamond is the symbol for zinc, which is part of what helped us grow as a community? And then on the Pittsburgh flag at the bottom, the flag on the P is symbolic of Balkans flags, which we were settled by many Balkan nations in the beginning. So more information is in here. We have had over 300 votes so far, and we are planning to appear on local media stations and have another press release about voting out. And so we just wanted to update you guys, show you what the final 3 look like. The link for voting is on the Imagine Pittsburgh 2030 page. And like I said, we'll be reaching out to various media outlets, and you'll get the link, and we'll vote on the flag from there.
Did you say when the deadline for
the voting? It's June 13th.
June 13th?
Yeah, we're hoping to unveil it at 620 Day, which is the area code kind of holiday that we created last year.
All right.
Thank you guys so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would want to speak in public input? Seeing none, I'm going to close the public input portion of the meeting and move to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have item A, approve May 26, 2020 commission meeting minutes. Item B, approval of staff's request to submit an application to Kansas Housing Resources Corporation, tenant-based rental assistance program for a grant in the amount of $100,000 to be used to provide security deposit assistance to income-eligible households and authorization for the mayor to sign the appropriate documents on behalf of the city. Item C, approval of the recommendation of Economic Development Advisory Committee to forgive the $16,000 loan to Dr. Chad Stewart, as Dr. Stewart has fully complied with the city's requirement for loan forgiveness and authorize the mayor to sign the necessary documents on behalf of the city. And item D, approval of appropriation ordinance for the period ending June 9th, 2020, subject to the release of HUD expenditures when funds are received. Are there any items you would to be removed for discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Is there a motion?
Do what?
Oh, motion.
Oh, a motion, yeah.
Motion to
Is there a
approve.
motion to approve?
So
moved. It's been moved by Larry and seconded by Patrick. Now, roll call vote.
Brooks?
Yes.
Fields?
Yes.
Munsell?
Yes.
O'Brien?
Yes.
All right. Special presentation. With 2019 Comprehensive Annual Finance Report. Stacy Hammond of BT and Company, PA, the city's auditing firm, will present to review the city's 2019 audit and the CAFA receive for file.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners, or President of the Board and Commissioners. Stacy Hammond is here from BT and Company. She's the city's current auditing firm. This will be for the fiscal year 2019. So without further, I'll have Stacy come up and give her comments.
Thank you, Jamie. I'm pleased to be here tonight to present the results of the city's annual financial statement audit. I believe everyone received in advance of this meeting a couple of items. One of those is the comprehensive annual financial report, which contains the city's audited financial statements. And the other is a report addressed to the City Commission. That report puts into writing items that our audit standards require us to present that summarize the results of the audit. And that's also going to form the basis of my presentation tonight, where I go through those required items that are listed in that report. The first item that I would like to talk about is our responsibility in performing the audit of the city's financial statements in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards issued by the Comptroller General of the United States, the provisions of the Single Audit Act, uniform guidance, the Office of Management and Budget Compliance Supplement, and standards set forth in the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. All of those standards together require us to perform procedures in order to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the city's financial statements are free from material misstatement. Our procedures included examining, on a test basis, evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. We also reviewed the accounting principles that the city uses and the significant estimates recorded by the city, as well as evaluating the overall financial statement presentation. The most important thing that I'm going to tell you this evening is that as a result of performing all of those procedures, we determined that the city's financial statements are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Therefore, we issued what we call an unmodified audit opinion, which is the best kind of opinion that the city can receive. In the Accounting Policies and Practices section of the report to the board, we would bring to your attention anything that we identified related to changes in accounting policies, new accounting standards, significant or unusual transactions. There's nothing in any of those areas that I'm required to report this year. I do need to talk a little bit, however, about the city's significant estimates. The city does have two significant estimates. Those are the other post-employment benefits liability and then the net pension liability that result from the city's participation in CAPERS. In our report to the Commission, we identify those as significant estimates and discuss the process that we go through to ensure that management of the city has measured and recorded those estimates in a reasonable manner. If you look at page 4 of the report to the City Commission, you'll see a summarization of those two estimates and a conclusion showing that we did determine that each of those estimates is measured and recorded appropriately by the city. There were several audit adjustments that we made as a result of our audit this year. Those are summarized at the very end of the report to the City Commission. Please note that most of those entries were prepared by the client and given to us during the audit. They are either reclassing items or entries related to activity like debt and capital assets that the city doesn't record on its financial statements on a day-to-day basis, but then gives us the activity at the end of the year to make those adjustments so that the city's financial statements can be recorded in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and Government Auditing Standards Board standards. The final sections on pages 2 and 3 of the report are where we would document anything bad that might have happened during the audit, if we'd had any disagreements with management or any unusual consultations or anything like that. I'm very pleased to report that there's nothing in any of those areas that we're required to report. Management of the city was very cooperative throughout the entire audit process, and they were extremely transparent in answering the numerous questions that we had. We did perform a single audit this year as part of the city's financial statement audit. What that means is that the city expended more than $750,000 of federal awards. Therefore, the single audit is required. We did not have any findings as a result of that single audit, which is also an excellent result. The final item that I would like to point out is that we did not have any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal controls. If we had, those would have been in this report to the city commissioners, so the fact that you don't see anything like that here is a good thing. Finally, we have attached to the report a letter that's 7 or 8 pages long and has a bunch of number items on it. We call that management's representation letter. That letter was the final step in the audit process, and once the management of the city signs that and returns it to us, it's a sign that the audit's ready to be completed. We like for you to be able to see what management did represent to us throughout the audit to help you fulfill your fiduciary responsibilities in reviewing those audit results, and that's why we include that in this packet. Finally, I would like to thank everyone in the finance department at the City of Pittsburgh, especially Jamie and Larissa for the hard work they did in preparing for the audit. We think that in order to achieve an excellent audit result, it's not just something that the city does in a couple of weeks before we come in and do our field work, that you really have to have good policies and procedures in place year-round in order to achieve a result like that. And so we would like to commend the finance department for having that in place. Thank you. That concludes my presentation this evening, and I would open it up to any questions that you might have.
I don't have any questions, just a comment that I'm proud again this year of the results of your audit, showing that we have a good staff in our finance department.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy. Good job.
Special presentations, item B, Economic Development Quarterly Report. Director of Economic Development, Blake Vincent, and Pitt State University Executive Director, Operations, Business Development, and Economic Engagement, Darrell Pulliam, will present the Quarterly Economic Development Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I always wanted to say that. And members of the commission, Darrell and I are here to provide our quarterly economic development report to you. Believe it or not, we've got a lot to talk about. You would think that not much has happened with the economy over the last couple of months. Not much good has happened, but there has been a lot of activity, and we're pleased to update you on that tonight. First of all, I just wanted to give you an idea of what our economy looks like post-COVID as some of this information is becoming available. You can see there on the unemployment rate in March, we were at a 20-year low of 3.3%, and virtually overnight it spiked to 9%. And to put it in perspective, 9% is right around where we were in 2008 when we lost our largest private employer in Superior Industries, and we were facing the Great Recession. So we know what kind of territory that we're in. But if you do look at the national numbers, we did still fare better than the national average. You can see it spiked from 4.4 up to 14.7, and there are some experts that think that the national unemployment rate could get as high as 20 or maybe even 25% when the May numbers come out. Hotel occupancy. I mentioned a couple of meetings ago that visitor spending and tourism is becoming a big part of our economy. Those visitors spend a lot of money in our community. In February, numbers from the Crawford County Convention and Visitors Bureau show that we were nearing 50% occupancy of our hotel rooms. You see the effect of what coronavirus did in March, and then by April we were down to almost 25%, and headed into May and June and July, which are typically some of our busier months for our hotels. So certainly a struggle there, and I know you're well aware of Jamie's numbers there, that as of the end of March, we were down 2.23% on the sales tax collections, but obviously when those April numbers come out, then that's when we really get a clearer picture of what the economy is going to look like. So don't necessarily want to paint a doom and gloom scenario, but it is just now becoming evident as information behind COVID and is becoming available. So I wanted to make sure that you were aware of those numbers.
Okay, specifically, I want to talk about this.
We did
Thank
it
you very
right.
much. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Specifically, I'd like to talk about the Small Business Development Center. That's part of the unit USI at Pittsburgh State University. We've spoke about them before, but really in this last 3 months, the thing to really zero in on is they've been fully engaged with the COVID-19 pandemic, and they've worked harder than ever before working with the local and regional based businesses. So during that time, there's a couple of different programs. I want to remind you guys that unit is really funded in partnership. It's a collaboration of the Small Business Administration, the Kansas Department of Commerce, and Pittsburgh State University all contribute the funds to help have those valuable resources at our disposal here in Pittsburgh for our local businesses. During the last 3 months, they've done both they've done both webinars and one-on-one counseling. And in the webinars, they've been having over 100 participants in a lot of the webinars that they put on during this time. And what I would like to add into that is that Randy Robinson, the regional director of that center, has studied most of the federal laws and actually knows that program probably better than most people in the state at this point in time. And what he really did was he really interacted with Blake and the Pittsburgh area chamber to really put the word out, and we did several sessions during this time to help get all of the businesses the support they needed to be able to go out and file the federal forms for the CARES Act and the PPP and the other federal programs. And then the one-on-one counseling, we worked with over 45 independent businesses here in Pittsburgh on helping them facilitate getting that paperwork done. That was really not an easy task. It had to be done on a very timely basis. And I want to commend the group because they did a really good job and they put in a lot of extra time in doing that. The bottom bullet point there, I wanted to point out that through all these efforts, we have secured, when we were adding it up, well over $1 million of federal funding and other fundings available for those businesses in the city.
And I do want to mention that Randy Robinson and Dacia at the Small Business Development Center have been working tirelessly because there have been some very good federal relief programs for our business community, but often, especially businesses that aren't used to working with those grant programs, it can be pretty intimidating. So hats off to the Small Business Development Center. Also our local banks. They're with Paycheck Protection Program, that's who you approached for that program. Our banks really worked overtime and turned a lot of money back on Main Street across the country. So we really appreciate them. Oh, you got more.
Okay, the next piece of that is the Small Business Development Center. I wanted to talk about some of the bigger goals and projects that we've been working on, not only in the last 3 months, but for the last year. And the first piece of that is about 6 to 8 months ago, back in October, the state marketing team was launched here at Pitt State. I've mentioned that before, where we did hire a full-time manager that manages the state marketing for all of the small business development centers. Pittsburgh State is a host. There's about 6 other regional host locations. We manage all of the marketing now for that. That was another initiative that Randy Robinson was able to drive that brought dollars to Pittsburgh in addition to the regular funding. In addition to that, they created 5 jobs, 1 full-time marketing manager and 4 part-time students that currently work in that call center. The other thing that's coming about right now is we're setting up a virtual SBA call center that's being launched right now. That again is adding 1.5 FTEs, so we have a full-time commercial person that's moving into that role that we're going to hire externally. We have a part-time person that'll be working in the evenings and 7 students that'll be working in that call center. So that's really a plus up for us and what we're doing and how we're really providing jobs for full-time jobs and for student related jobs.
So another effort over the last couple of months, this was mid to late April. This was a cooperative effort, the Pittsburgh Strong effort was a cooperative effort between the Chamber and Jake's Fireworks. And we're proud of this because we reached out to the business community, secured over 70 sponsors to help us cover the cost of these shirts. So that enabled small businesses, particularly those in the retail sector that were really hit first and hit hardest by this, that they were able to sell these shirts for $10, keep all of the sale price for themselves. And through that effort, we raised over $70,000 for small businesses here in our community. And I think it came at a good time. It was kind of a good rallying cry for our community. And so it's something that we really appreciate Jake's making possible, and I'm glad that we were able to be a part of it. We then, as businesses started reopening, we were able to work with Miller's and U.S. Awards, 2 more great locally owned companies for the Pittsburgh Strong face mask that allowed businesses that were reopening to protect their employees, protect their customers. The city received a number of the face masks, and thanks to the generosity of Miller's and U.S. Awards, we were able to provide over 5,000 face masks to over 300 local businesses, absolutely free of charge. So really appreciate Miller's and U.S. Awards making that happen.
So to talk about the manufacturing engagement, that's an additional piece to the small business support. Kansas Manufacturing Solutions, you've heard that name before as previously as Mamtech. We're in collaboration with them at Pittsburgh State, and we actually help deliver the manufacturing services for Southeast Kansas-based manufacturers. Specifically, what we were doing in this last 3 months is we went in and worked with the same 2 companies that Blake just mentioned and another additional company to help provide personal protection equipment, PPE often referred as. And we were able to help take their existing manufacturing lines and repurpose those to help develop those masks. And in addition, we're moving that business forward, and we're working through the other state channels to help provide more business and more business opportunities for those companies. In addition to that, the Kansas Manufacturing Solutions, we were able to help secure a grant of $7,500 for one of those companies to help do additional service work, and then we were able to acquire money for them to purchase additional equipment through a federal NIST grant. So I thought that was worth mentioning.
Sure. So just some other items on how we've been busy during the coronavirus time frame. I know some of you were on a conference call that we had on March 30th with David Tolan, who's the Kansas Commerce Secretary. Gave Secretary Tolan an opportunity to talk about what the state was going to be doing to help with the businesses that were affected, but also gave businesses that needed more information, if they weren't deemed essential, what that process looked like for them to apply to be essential. And Secretary Tolan was able to answer that directly with our local businesses. We had multiple HR calls, conference calls with our larger manufacturing employers. If you think about it, if you have an HR responsibility, COVID threw a lot of things at you that no one could ever have foreseen. You know, particularly if a manufacturer had an employee that was nervous about coming to work, the HR director in the company wasn't really sure how exactly to handle that. So these conference calls were a great opportunity to share information. Michelle Decree, the city's HR director, joined in on those and is a wealth of information and was able to help those manufacturers as well. And on both of those calls, we also had Rebecca Adamson, the county health department director. So if they had questions for Rebecca, she could speak directly to the business community. So I'm glad that we were able to do that. Daryl mentioned the dissemination of information, just making sure our businesses were aware of all the programs that were out there. Jay, I know, has talked about the Community Development Block Grant Program. That's the funds that the city will be receiving to help small businesses. We'll be helping Jay to screen those and help kind of put together a process. And then the city and the university and the chamber and a number of other organizations serving on a joint recovery task force that as we go along, we'll make sure that our community and our businesses are aware of what is expected of them now that they are open to remain open. Is that it? No, you got one.
I wanted to touch real quickly on the Kansas Polymer Research Center. That's an economical driver here in the city of Pittsburgh. We've been very successful at going out and recruiting a senior scientist, which we desperately needed. We've added several projects in the last 6 months under the leadership of Dr. Tim Dawsey. And we've actually brought enough work in that really necessitates us starting to expand our workforce there. So that's really a very positive thing for the city of Pittsburgh. Another unique point is we've hired 2 local/regional chemistry instructors for the summer. That's really a recruitment and a recruitment opportunity. So for the summer, we've hired local chemistry instructors from the high school level to come in and actually have hands-on experience, work on live projects, and we believe that will help them understand what capabilities and things we have to offer at the university, and they'll go back to their high schools and it'll actually help as a recruiting tool. NIST, the National Institute of Science and Technology, we were successful in a $300,000 grant back in the fall, and we have now started the construction and we're rebuilding a testing lab, and then we filed for an additional grant through that same agency that's up to $1 million that's in review right now to basically really give us the horsepower we need to go in and update our equipment, which attracts national talent and national opportunities for us to expand on that platform. And then just recently, we've re-engaged with a local chemical company here in the region, and we're starting additional work with them now. I think there's one more. Just real quickly, I thought I'd touch on Block 22 and just give you an update. At this point, all the restaurants are operational, the coffee shop's operational. Commercial tenants-wise, the building's full, so we have a full building. The students right now, we show prior to COVID, we have every room leased for the fall. We're waiting to see if any of those will drop out or not or drop back off. But right now, everything looks very positive in the fact that it's fully occupied and we're ready to rock and roll. I did want to mention one thing. We just signed an MOU with USD 250 for the CAPS program. We're going to be a host site for them in the fall. We're actually really pretty excited about having juniors and seniors from the local high schools coming into the facility for at least 2 hours a day all week long. So I do think that's it.
I believe that's all we have. Commissioners, would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
I don't have anything.
I have a couple.
Certainly.
Blake, how much funds were raised per year prior to COVID through this economic development sales tax?
On a normal year, Commissioner, it's right around $1 million.
$1 million? And
Yes, sir. In
How
a
much do we
non-COVID year.
have in there right now?
And Jamie can throw something at me if I'm incorrect. I believe the unencumbered balance is approximately $2.2 million.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks, guys. Good work.
Thanks.
Thanks, Daryl.
Next item. Grant request. Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas considered the recommendation of Economic Development Advisory Committee to provide a non-repayable grant to the Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas for 10% of the project value of expanding to create the new family medical rural residency program in Pittsburgh with the grant amount not to exceed $600,000.
All right, thank you so much, Commissioner. And I've had the opportunity just over the last few years, multiple times to stand before you and help present a project, an expansion project with the Community Health Center of Southeast Kansas. And I can tell you that this may be the most exciting project that we've ever had the opportunity to bring you. The team at the Community Health Center is aggressively growing. You saw in the memo how they've grown to where they provide medical, dental, and behavioral health care to 70,000 individuals at 22 sites across 7 counties. And the Community Health Center, I know many of you are familiar with their history. They now employ over 500 including over 100 professionals. And I think, I know the project that Jason's about to tell you about truly is game-changing for our community. So I'm going to ask Jason Wesco, who's the Executive Vice President of the Community Health Center, to come up and provide a presentation, and then I'll talk about the recommendation from the EDAC. So, Jason, just that right arrow right there.
Thank you, Blake. Commissioners, thank you, and we'd just like to send our well wishes to Mayor McNay, Chris, and her family. It's good to be before you. We've been through a lot as a community, as a healthcare organization, and it's nice to talk about the future and some things that we're planning in our community. So let me get to that. Really quickly, Blake did a nice job of providing some background on us. I'll just remind you that we started as an independent organization, not-for-profit organization in 2003. At that time, we were in what was the Family Resource Center, 1700 North Locust, which is in the old Lincoln School. We started with 11 employees, and as Blake said, we're now actually pushing 600 with clinics as far north as Pleasanton and now into Miami, Oklahoma, and west to Coffeyville. So we have grown dramatically. Our goal is to provide access to medical, dental, behavioral health care, and pharmacy services, and lots of other things, regardless of ability to pay. And we're very proud to be able to do that and to call Pittsburgh home. Our history with the RLF, we have received 3 awards. 2 of them we used, one of them, the most recent in 2017, because of other funding we did not have to. Those have all gone very well, and we've been very successful with those. So, big picture, our purpose is to provide access to health care, but we've always thought of ourselves much more broadly than a clinic, a health clinic, for instance. We want to improve the health of the communities that we serve, and those are very different things. The delivery of health care and improving health are different things. We've also been committed to creating jobs and a pathway for our kids. So we have everything from nursing students to this summer we'll have 20, 3rd, and 4th year medical students. We have dental students, we have pharmacy students, behavioral health, everything. At any one time, we have about 100 students engaged with our providers across our clinics, because it is our belief that if we give our kids a pathway to health care, that they may choose to stay in Southeast Kansas. We all too often hear the story about kids who want to go somewhere else. Often that training is somewhere else, and they decide to stay wherever they were most recently trained. So our goal has to be to create that pathway up to and including becoming a doctor right here in Pittsburgh. Many members of our leadership team are here, including our CEO, Krista Postai, who's worked all her career to create a family practice residency. And as many of you know, we were awarded a federal grant of $750,000 to do that in collaboration with the University of Kansas. What that means is that we will have doctors who graduate, so not only med students, 3rd and 4th years, but then residency, which is the terminal degree. Our hope is that over time, we will have 4 students per class, and we will be graduating 4 family practice doctors every year. This is a really big deal because it never happens in a community of 20,000 people. It happens in Kansas and one other place that's a small town, that's Salina, which is 3 times the size of Pittsburgh. But what generally happens is individuals go to med school, then they match to residency, they go to Kansas City, Tulsa, Wichita, wherever they go, and generally stay. They practice within 75 miles of where they train. And the data also tells us that only about 2% of family practice residency graduates want to practice in a town of 25,000 or less. So you couple that with the workforce challenge of most of our dentists and doctors, average age is about 60, that we've got a very short amount of time to do a lot of work to infuse a workforce into Southeast Kansas to make sure we have access to care, access to good jobs, and pathways for our kids. From an economic development perspective, I just wanted to remind you all of the growth. So we started with 11 employees in 2003. We now employ 562 individuals. 278 of them work in Crawford County. That's an average salary of $51,000, but a total benefit for salary in the community of $14.4 million. And the calculation of the total benefit to the community, to Crawford County, is about $23.4 million, with the money we spend and how that multiplies based on a study by K-State. So we're very excited about this, because it's going to mean not only expanded access to workforce, but expanded access to care. So what we needed to do with the result of that $750,000 grant is create a place for these students to be. And that's going to be a new facility. This is our campus. I'm very proud to say we have a campus now on North Michigan and Atkinson. You'll see our main clinic that you all helped us support with RLF fundings in the shape of a cross. The sisters always built their clinics in the shape of a cross, and so did we. The addition in 2015, which you also helped us do on the back of that, a combined 43,000 square feet. We also, our system offices in the building to the left. The outlined area is land that has recently been gifted to us by the county so that we can build the new facility there. This is the site plan. We have architects from Kansas City who have worked with both KU and KCU, the osteopathic school, and they're doing a great job. This is what the site will look like, including a connector from the system office, a connector suite, and what is the John Parolo Health Education Facility. You may recall in February I visited with you about the story of John and the lead gift that his foundation made to us of $1.5 million for this building, which we have named in his honor. And then the new parking spaces, which everybody's concerned about, 124 new of those on the campus. This is what the building will look like, in keeping with the rest of the buildings on campus. The idea is to create a hub of both students and our health professionals to interact. So it's not only about educating students, but it's also about them interacting with our health professionals and maybe making some personal relationships and hopefully wanting to stay in Southeast Kansas. View from the back. This is the connector. This is our current system office and the suite that connects it. We'll make some modifications, not with city funds, but with our own funds to make the building more in keeping with what we are constructing. The new building is about 16,000 square feet. This building and another building that I'll tell you about in a minute, the total cost is an estimated about $6 million. You'll notice that there are gathering spaces. The auditorium can seat about 80 if we do classroom style, more if we do not. There's open space out to the outside. You'll see the cafe, which is a place for people to gather, kind of a rec room, study area, administrative offices, classrooms, and exam rooms where we will have essentially actors play patients for the students. Our residents will also see live patients because they are physicians under supervision. I will talk about that in just a minute. This is what it'll look like coming into the Parolo Education Center. The left is the cafe, the right is the auditorium. View from the auditorium. Study area for the students. Again, this will be students of all disciplines. Could be medical, dental, behavioral health, pharmacy students. That's part of the idea of integrated care, that we will provide care in a way that helps meet all of patients' needs, and we don't silo those services or require people to go other places to get them. So, before I move on, so this is where education will happen. It's very close to our main campus. We also have to have a continuity clinic, a place for those residents to provide care, real-time, live patients. And that we are planning to happen in a clinic that was built by Dr. Hubner. So this is out near the hospital. You can kind of get a sense for its location. We recently acquired that building as well. That is part of the project. There will be a renovation of that clinic. Just to give you a visual if it did not look familiar. So I won't go into great detail here, but we are planning to put additional exam rooms, a pharmacy, and x-ray here so that those residents can practice full scope of medicine. They will be supervised by our family practice physicians who will also be on faculty at KU. So I know that was a lot of information in a very short period of time. I have some other, some of our leadership team with me if you all have specific questions. But the overall project is estimated to be about $6 million. We believe that year one, we will employ 30 people, but it's hard to give you a precise estimate of jobs created over time because we will be cycling students in. The residents are paid. They typically bring a spouse or significant other with them. Sometimes they bring kids with them. We believe this is going to be a way not only to increase access to care, but encourage the idea that Pittsburgh is the hub of Southeast Kansas and a hub for training and education and development, and that it will help attract additional folks and keep our kids here. So again, we think we'll create about 30 jobs initially through this, but there will be many, many more jobs, and the impact, I believe, is going to be dramatic over time. So it would be a $600,000 grant that you would be giving us. We've raised $1.75 million to date. We've kind of been waiting for this discussion so that when we talk with others, foundations and other donors, that we can say the city's on board, the county's on board, we have a lead gift. Won't you help us? I know that was a lot. Questions I could answer for you all?
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's impressive.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
Well, just real quickly, Commissioner, I want to make sure that the folks at home heard one important thing that Jason, they were all important, but especially that with this facility and this program that the Community Health Center is creating, it is entirely possible in the very near future that a local kid, a Pittsburgh kid, could become a doctor without ever leaving Pittsburgh, Kansas. That's exciting. When we talk about growing our community and attracting professionals, that's what we're talking about. So hats off to the Community Health Center for this project.
And I appreciate that. Just real quickly, what I will say is we know that in that first class of residency, we already have a young woman from Fort Scott, a young man from Baxter Springs who are very likely to be in that program. So I believe the kids are here that want to do this. We've already seen that, and we've just barely begun.
So the EDAC did hear this presentation last week, Commissioner, and based on the fact that it's such a great project, creates a number of jobs, as Jason mentioned, the value is $6 million. They did recommend contributing 10% of the total project value up to $600,000 from the RLF to support this. It would be paid at the end of the project, and Jason has indicated that we would even be able to spread that out over multiple years, so it wasn't quite as a big a hit to the RLF all at once, but that is the recommendation from the EDAC for you.
Now, are there any further questions?
I don't have any questions, just to comment that it's, I'm extremely proud of what you all are doing and what you're doing for the community, what you're bringing to the community. It's amazing every time you take a step and what you provide for the underserved here in town and in the community and in the whole area.
Will the other 6 counties besides Crawford County that you serve, will those people be coming in here for training as well?
Well, our hope is that, yes, and I think corollary to that is it will help us build stronger connections to other hospital systems in the region because they will need doctors. And I think we will have them. So we can help stay connected, and I think it will help us continue to lead, if I'm answering your question.
I think you are.
Yeah.
Are there any further questions? Entertain a motion to approve.
I so move.
Second.
And before we vote, I have to disclose that I am on the board of Community Health.
It's been motioned by Patrick, seconded by Cheryl. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for all you do for us.
Absolutely.
Next item, grant request. THF LLC considered the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee to provide a non-repayable grant to Kobe Turlip, owner of THF LLC, Sunflower Hemp Company, located at 3002 North Rotary Terrace for 10% of Sunflower Hemp Company projected value with a grant amount not to exceed $100,000.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. This is obviously a project that you heard about a couple of meetings ago. Colby came up and gave his presentation to kind of give you a summary of that. Mr. Turlip is proposing to invest close to $1 million in private funds to create a CBD oil processing facility in the Northeast Industrial Park. This is in a building that's been vacant for some time, and it would be nice to get that back in use. Mr. Turlip anticipates 10 new positions in the first year, with an additional 5 positions expected by year 3. After we got your thoughts on Mr. Turlip's presentation, per your instructions, we took it back to the EDAC. They heard Mr. Turlip's presentation last week and recommended that the city invest in this project. Same situation, 10% up to $100,000 in RLF funds to help Mr. Turlip with the Sunflower Hemp Project. So I've got Mr. Turlip's presentation that he gave you. I've got it up. He's in attendance tonight if you have any additional questions for him, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that I can answer as well.
I had a couple questions for Mr. Turlip.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. The last time he was here, I asked about like financing through a bank, and you said that was not something that banks in the state of Kansas would do.
Correct.
And they're still not interested in that.
There's an act called the Safe Banking Act. It's going up in front of Congress. I don't know when, but the U.S. Congress, hopefully it'll pass and get cannabis financing to make it more safe for banks to
Yep.
loan money out. But as far as I know, in the state of Kansas, I haven't been able to find a bank that is doing this. Yes.
Thank you. I have another question, and it concerns the security of your facility.
Yes.
And I was reading on here about your plans. Could you kind of, for the audience here and maybe a little bit at home, explain? Because that's some of the questions I've had with the possibility, and I don't know exactly what somebody would do breaking into there, but there might be a thought that they might want to do that. So could you explain a little bit about
Yeah, I just met with a security company last week to talk about cameras, alarms to be installed in the building. So we're gonna have cameras throughout the building, especially in our processing spaces. The cameras will be able to recognize a face from far away. It's not like your old camera that's pixelated, maybe you can't recognize somebody's face. But in addition to cameras, we're gonna have motion sensors in the building that'll be tied directly to the police station or what have you. So if the motion detector or the camera see something that shouldn't, it'll call the police. We'll also have keyed entry to go into our rooms. We'll have lock spaces for our products that may be of concern to somebody that maybe wants to break in and steal something. Those will be locked, kept away in a secure area. So we are taking multiple steps to secure the facility.
Would you have a security personnel on site or no need for that?
At this time, no. I mean, we haven't discussed that. It's not something that I'm against at all. I think that we can take the proper security though to not require that.
All right, thanks. I have no further questions.
I do.
Yes.
What about the outside of the facility? Is it fenced in? Will
The
it
outside
be?
is not fenced in, no. But the doors will be secure. Everything will
Sure.
be secure to get into the building, but it's not fenced in, no.
All right, thank you.
If there's no further question, I entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Larry, seconded by Patrick. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Thank
Motion
you.
carried.
We're getting the work out of you tonight.
I know. I told you we've been busy.
The next item, grant request, Art Construction Consulting and Management. Consider the recommendation of Economic Development Advisory Committee to provide a non-repayable grant to Dane Arc on behalf of Art Construction Consulting Management for 10% of the redevelopment cost for the property located at 812 North Broadway, with a grant amount not to exceed $7,000.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And I know many in our community are well Connected with Dane Ark, longtime background in construction in our community. Not too long ago, he and his father went out and created Ark Consulting in construction, and have purchased a building in downtown that was in pretty bad shape and have invested quite a bit in it. So they applied to the RLF for a little bit of assistance. So maybe before I talk about that recommendation, we just asked Dane to come up and show you some pictures, kind of some before and after pictures of what exactly the improvements they made to the building. So if we'll just push that right arrow key there.
Hey, good evening. I'm Dane Ark, Ark Construction. Like Blake said, we purchased a building downtown, 812 North Broadway. And like I say, it was in pretty rough shape when we got it, but we've kind of got up to modern times now, and tried to also maintain the historical value, not doing too much on the exterior to take away from that. But as we kind of go through, obviously this is a before picture as we get going. And there's the exterior before. As you can see, it was the anime comic book store to begin with. Obviously the awning is down now. This is just a progress picture here. As you can see, we've gutted everything on the inside and started going back with new. There's the awnings down, and like I said, we ended up covering up the blue background that you see there with some EIFS material, and obviously added signage to that. But like I say, we try to maintain and leave as much as the masonry. We had a tuck point and cleaned and sealed. And there's what it looks like today. Here's a picture just of one of our offices. Everything's ADA compliant. And we were happy to not only get some exposure from being downtown, but be a part of the movement going downtown. It's exciting to us with the Block 22 kind of, if you will, kicking things off and paving the way a little bit for that. And just being downtown so far, we've really enjoyed it. Like I say, it's being visible now, I think was going to help our business grow and continue. We've been very blessed to this point, and like I say, again, hope that continues in the future. And that is it.
Dane, are you using the second floor for anything, or are any future plans?
Not currently. Yeah, right now it's just going to be for storage. Actually, there's nothing up there now. The gentleman actually lived up above prior to selling it. So it's in pretty good shape. The apartment's above my office. But it's got a kind of a common staircase that you go up, and so it's a little sketchy, you know, at this point as far as getting to my area. It could be in the future, and the gentleman that owns Bamboo now, him and I have talked about at some point maybe kind of converting those into some apartments down the road. Yes, sir.
Good.
What about the roof?
Roof is actually a year old. That was one of the bonuses, if you will, purchasing the building. Just had a new roof put on in 19. So we lucked out there. Structurally wise, the building's really good, you know, sound, good bones to it. Again, just a lot of cosmetic. And of course, all the mechanical had to be replaced and redone, you know, just due to age and neglect, if you will.
Parking in back?
What's that?
Parking in back?
There's just basically a one, you could get two if you squeeze them tight, but there's a you know, a place to park in the back. Yes, sir.
Any further questions for Dane? If not, I entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second?
Been moved by Larry, second by Patrick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thanks,
Thank you,
Dane.
guys.
Thank you.
Good job, Dane.
Item D, I was waiting for Blake, he's had enough, I guess Kim. Splash Pad Project Award. Consider staff recommendation to award the Slanger Park Splash Pad Project to Sunscape Pool and Backyard, a division of Home Center Construction Incorporation of Pittsburgh, Kansas, in the amount of $270,412.10.
Good evening. I'll give a little background for you. It's been a while since I've been up here and presented on the Splash Pad project, and for those listening at home. In 2019, we applied for and received a grant from the Land and Water Conservation Fund that is ran through the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks, and Tourism. And so we did get that grant. We were awarded that grant. And at that time, we brought in 4 aquatics vendor companies to do proposals to us. And after that, we submitted requests for proposals from companies. So we submitted those requests for proposals. We received the first round of those, which all came in over budget. We redid the process, put out new RFPs. Those were due on May 19th. We received 3 of those back and reviewed those requests for proposals, and with the notes from our in-person meetings that took place December 3rd, we would like to award this project to Home Center Construction. With that, I also have Barbara Herbert, who is the chairman of Everybody Plays here, so if you have any questions, we'd be glad to answer them.
Are there any questions?
Kim, I have one. I noticed that 2 of the bids are water play solutions. Is that a kit that you buy, or is that the same system?
No, Water Play Solutions is actually one of the vendors of the equipment.
Okay.
So there are 4, it's kind of like playground equipment. There are 4
Okay.
major vendors, and we had all of them in December and met with all of them. Water Play Solutions is one of those vendors. They just happen to bid with 2 different construction companies.
Wide range of bids, too.
Yeah.
Kim,
Thank you.
could you walk us through the funding real quick? Just
Sure.
'cause I know
The funding for this project, half of it, 50% will come from the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. The remaining portion of the funding for the project will all come from funds that have been raised through the Everybody Plays committee and through other local grants that we've received or have applied for. But we do have all the funding in place for the project as it currently is. So what could happen with this project? What you see here isn't necessarily the final design. We'll take another month and do a final design for the project. We are expected to have that done around July 10th, mid-July. But if more funding were to come in for this project, we could actually enhance some of the features. So we do have some grant requests out. We have enough for the project as it stands right now, but for instance, we could take one of those just little spray ground features and actually put a big archway or something else there. So that's what we'll spend the next month or so determining. And the way we have the system set up now, the Home Center bid a 5,000 gallon water tank, which will allow us to actually expand. So the features can all be interchanged. So as we move year from year, if more funding would come in for the project, we could actually trade out features because we have a water capacity that could accommodate that.
Well, Kim, thank you for the work you've done on this project. It's very, very impressive. If there's no further questions.
I'm sorry, one more thing. I didn't mean to interrupt, but this is, just for those at home, this is going where the Schlanger pool is. So this project will replace the drain and fill pool at Schlanger Park.
And when, now that you brought that up, when will construction start on this?
So that will be determined by when we get the final design, and we can bring that back to you when we do have the final design. So when that is approved, if you would like to see that again, we'll bring that back. And then the construction was put for 155 working days, I believe is what Home Center had down in their bid.
All right, thank you. Is there any other questions for Kim?
I do. How do you protect all that? It's so nice.
It
And
will be
knowing-
fenced.
will.
Yeah, so we will take down the current fence that's there, but we will replace the fence. And so it will be locked in the evenings. It'll be able to be open longer during the season, which will be nice, opposed to the pool that's there now that's only open on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But, so it'll have a longer season, but we will be able to lock it and secure it at night.
Someone will be present during the days whenever.
Not necessarily.
Not,
No.
Okay.
No, and that's another nice thing about this. Someone will have to check the water balance, but we'll probably be able to do all that online, just like we can at the Aquatic Center. It'll be the same control system, but same type of control system. But, so someone may have to be on site if something needs adjusted, but it will not have to be staffed.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
And moved by Patrick, seconded by Cheryl. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All opposed, same sign.
Job, Kim.
Motion carried. Good job, Kim. Ordinance number G 1312, consider approval of ordinance number G 1312, amending sections 6-141, 74-1, and 74-2 of the Pittsburgh City Code to permit restaurants to enter into a temporary license agreement authorizing the obstruction of a portion of the public sidewalk in order to permit the consumption of food and beverages thereon, and to create new sections 74-12, 74-13, 74-14, and 74-15, regulating temporary license agreement issued to restaurants, authorize the use of a portion of public sidewalk for the consumption of food and beverage thereon.
President and Commissioners, that was a nice technical ordinance we're facing here. What it does is essentially gives us some more flexibility. One of the hardest hit areas of the economy through this pandemic have been the restaurants and hospitality services. We're looking for different options to how to help these people out. A lot of them are still maintaining 6-foot distances in their restaurants. That essentially halves the capacity for those restaurants. And we're looking at ways to maybe give them some more seating capacity. One of the ways we can do that is through making some more public space available for them. And what this does is gives us some flexibility to give them a comfort level, things that they can have a formal relation or agreement with, so that they can use some other public spaces. And this is what we're trying to do here. There's other cities that are doing this. We've looked around the country and seen what other cities are doing. Some cities are closing down entire blocks and making them open for restaurants and making them adding additional seating space within their community for them to help them through this process or this problems that we're facing. And all this does is simply create a capacity for them to acquire rights to certain areas in the public sidewalks, public spaces, so that they can have additional seating capacity.
Can you talk about a little bit, Jay, on it won't close the sidewalk down. What is the space that would remain for public to?
It definitely will not close. We're not closing any streets down, and we're not closing any sidewalks down. We have to have, by regulation, by the ADA regulations, we have to have at least 3 feet of passage to let on the space between in the sidewalk somewhere, right? And they'll always be there. The sidewalk access through will always be there.
Are there some restaurants that couldn't take advantage of that because of a smaller sidewalk, or are most of them?
There may be some that have some restrictions there. I think there's some restaurants on some of the side streets may have only 5-foot sidewalks, so that would be a problem. But most of the restaurants have abilities on the sidewalks, certainly on Broadway, where you could take advantage of it.
Thanks.
Has there been much of an interest in this so far?
Yes. We're looking for various options, and people have said that they'd like to have access to some public spaces.
If it's temporary, why charge $50 to them for the license, a temporary license? Why charge $50 if they've already got a city license?
This is a license to cover the tracking. We have to have separate agreements and separate paperwork to identify specifically what we're allowing them to access. So there's other record keeping that has to take place.
Okay, but if they have a city license, they already have liability insurance and other things. It just seems, if it's temporary, I wouldn't be really in favor of charging them more if they already have a city license.
Well,
because,
won't you be doing more book work and things like that, Cheryl?
Well, I wouldn't think so, because probably not every one of them is going to do this, and being it's temporary and it's because of distancing, it should be, I would think it'd be something that we should just let them do, and I would not be in favor of charging them $50.
But
But it's up to you guys. I mean, it's just my thoughts.
The reason it was there was to cover what we felt would be an additional administrative effort to keep track of the agreements and the physical layouts that we'd be granting.
How many
access
people
to.
are interested in this?
That remains to be seen.
Oh,
I
okay.
think we probably have a half dozen that would be interested in it, at least initially. You know how these go, if somebody sees someone else.
I guess I just saying, that they already have a city license, they already have the insurance and everything. I just,
Yeah, it's a
I
great
just thought
point.
I'd ask.
The $50 doesn't break anything.
No.
The biggest concern, I think, is they're all going to have a plan of what they're going to do with the sidewalk so they're going to have to lay out, and it's not going to be whatever the manager feels like doing that day. It's going to be table, chair, tree. So you've always so there will be some review of that.
Sure.
But
Oh, well.
the $50 doesn't matter to us. We just thought we needed a fee in there. to cover the cost.
I just now
You
saw
guys
that.
think it should be half of that or zero, please?
Who
Feel
approved
free.
that plan, Darren? It wouldn't have to come-
I'm hoping somebody from Public Works will review it, because if Tammy reviews it or I review it, it's not going to be very good, but it
The
should
way
be.
the ordinance is currently drafted is that the Director of Public Works will actually approve each individual plan in conjunction with the fire chief. And there'll actually be a license agreement entered into with any business that, or any restaurants that wants to do this, this is just a framework
Okay.
for doing the license agreement. And what we tried to do is we looked at different communities, not only in Kansas, but in other states as well, tried to, tailor it to our community as best we could. I hadn't seen the presentation yet that Blake and Daryl had tonight, but those numbers were pretty staggering. So, our hope is that anything that we can do to help, we'd like to help our local
Sure.
businesses, because we do know that they are hurting. And this is something that, if you've been to Lawrence or Kansas City, some of those communities, they already have a sidewalk dining ordinance framework and in place. Lawrence is looking at closing parking spaces and maybe redoing their traffic, to try to help their businesses. But our Main Street is so much different from theirs. We feel like this is at least a good first step. We'd like to get it approved, and, there's nothing to say that we can't extend this program after the end of the year. We thought this was an opportunity to give those restaurants a chance to see if it'll work here.
Well, I think $50 is pretty cheap if you think you're gonna do a little more business, though. Because you do have, you've got work in it, you're gonna have somebody from the code department checking on it too, and have to go look.
And Cameron will be reviewing them himself, Chuck.
And, we've lost a lot of income already.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's an inordinate amount of money, it's just enough to maybe
Sure.
cover some of our expenses.
That's, like Henry said, it's just a hard time. Businesses are trying to make all they can and don't want a nickel and dime them. All right.
I understand.
All right, if there's no further question, I'll entertain a moment for, motion, not a moment, for approval.
So moved.
I have a motion by Larry for approval and a second by Patrick. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Non-agenda reports and requests. Darren, does staff have anything?
I just think there's been a lot of chatter about the pool and the fireworks, and so we did want to make it clear. We did a public service announcement, a short video today that'll be released tomorrow. Nobody on the staff wants to close anything, let alone the pool and the fireworks, so we've given it a lot of thought. But if anybody has any questions, I know you've been asked, several of the commissioners. And I think I reached out to you without trying to break 100 rules, just kind of get your feedback on we're considering. What do you think? I appreciate you giving me your opinions, and we took a lot into consideration, and we do know it's going to make a difficult situation more unpleasant, if you will. but it's hopefully in the long term going to be the best decision on a number of fronts for us as a city. So I just wanted to mention that we do hear everybody. We pay attention to what they're saying, and we had a lot of consideration when making these tough decisions.
Darren, maybe you could, at our study session the other day, you highlighted some of the reasons that we were considering this, as in our lack of funding. What we would have to do with our employees if we didn't take some of these tough decisions.
Yeah, financial consideration was one of the top three. I think when you think about the safety of the employees that have to manage the pool, that's a big one. Those are young people, and they're burdened with managing the 250 people that are usually in there. And now we've got 250 that want to get in, and we have to let maybe 40 or 50 in and move them through in shifts. There's the life safety aspect. But the big driver on fireworks and pool, a big driver is the city's finances. I'm not sure a lot of people are aware. There's so many individual business owners that are hurting. There's so many individuals, sole proprietorships that are hurting, that we've kind of tried to keep in-house what the position was the city was until we knew those facts on what our revenues are going to be. But our initial estimates are we're $2.5 million down. That's a lot of ground to make up when your core business is employees with tools doing stuff. It's not easy to cut a lot out when you try to keep the employees employed and have them to have the proper tools to do things that they're out there trying to do. So we've taken some pretty responsible moves, I think, through our team. Over 6 weeks ago, we initiated a hiring freeze. There are a few exceptions to that, but most of those are around the temporary and seasonal employees. As we get orders that the city's going to open back up and more things are going to come on, we need employees to be there, and those are usually summer employees. We've tried to keep the employees that mow employed, and for the most part, we've done a great job, but we are facing some huge gaps in our revenue stream. And so when you talk about money for fireworks that is not done through donations, but it's done through the general fund, thanks to your leadership and a few other commissioners that said, hey, if people are going to donate money, let's have them donate it to feed people and clothe people and take care of some of the more pressing needs. Let's not burden the donors with having to pay for a $20,000 fireworks show. So we moved off of that. That's paid for from the general fund. The pool itself, in a great year, is subsidized. There's no pool. If there's a pool that's breaking even, that's run by a city in America, I'd like to see it. Ours is subsidized to the tune of probably $30,000 minimum. If we cut the attendance down, which is what we'd have to do if we opened, it'd be even more of a subsidy. That could be a job or two for an employee. Right now, we're trying to keep our employees employed. We're trying to be patient. The good thing is we have a lot of the year left when we made these decisions. So the hiring freeze, the salary freeze. We have employees that have the promise of when you graduate and get a degree, we'll give you an incentive pay. All that's taken off the table this year. The employees have been great. They've been open-minded. They realize we're working to keep their jobs. But $2.5 million is a lot of money. We won't know for another 2 weeks what the revenue was for May. And the reality is we know it's going to go like this, but we won't know until the end of July whether it's going to come back up like this or whether it's going to go out. And if it goes out, we've got a huge gap to cover. So we want to protect the reserves. We have a small amount of reserve that is above our minimum level, so we've put that into play to save an employee's job and to keep us from having to cut anybody. But if we get word in 2 weeks or 2 months or 6 months that there's been a spike and things are shutting back down again, we've got to have our reserves in order to get through that, or it's going to be no services and very few employees, and that's not a situation we want. So I appreciate you asking that question. We are trying to do right by the public safety and our public employees first and foremost, which is keeping them employed and keeping the public safe. And
Darren, you said on the fireworks, the permit that stands paid.
Yes.
Did that go to fund our display or now that we're not gonna have a display, will that money just go to the general fund for, build our reserves? How will that-
It's always gone to the general fund, and it's usually something less than we spend on the fireworks show. So the general fund has always contributed a little bit, but yes, that's in there, and this is going to be a good example of this year. It will go into the general fund, and it will not be used for fireworks, so it will be used for whatever else you decide it needs to be used for.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I was listening to the news the other night, and I noticed that the mayor of LA said that that city and its employees are taking a 10% pay cut. That's something that we haven't faced here with our employees. And I think that speaks well to how we manage our business.
Well, and there is a list with that number on it, and it's 5% pay cut, and it creates a significant amount of money. So we have a list, and we're prepared to go down it as much as we need to. But yes, it's great that we're looking right now like that's not going to be needed, and we're just going to buckle down and get through this with everybody else, because we don't want to put too much of a story about, oh, feel sorry for the city. We know the businesses are getting hammered just like we did, but I think it is important for people to understand that 2 months of no sales tax, which goes directly into the general fund and funds the economic development program, the street program. As Commissioner Brooks and I were talking about earlier, the public safety sales tax, that funds police officers. We rely on our sales tax considerably, and right now, it's pretty much unknown what the bottom of that looks like.
And you said probably into this month, we will know more about that.
By the end of this month, we will know exactly what we collected or didn't collect for May, which was the month that everything was shut down. And then the big question after that will become, how is our estimate compared to that, and how fast are we going to rebound? Anyway.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You bet.
If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion for adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded moved by Patrick, seconded by Cheryl. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We all opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.